We're now live and on the air. Evening, folks. Armour Township is situated on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe. Armour Township recognizes the historical and contemporary contributions of the local First Nations and the peoples of Turtle Island. First off, I'd like to read out our disclaimer. We are recording this both on Zoom, so for the folks in the room and for those on Zoom, you will be recorded. This disclaimer is to inform all participants that this meeting conducted in person and via Zoom will be recorded for record-keeping purposes. By participating in the meeting, you consent that the recording may contain your video stream, including images of yourself, your audio stream. This includes any opinions you contribute. Anyone attending the recorded meeting may have aspects of their personal data recorded if they actively participate or not. By staying in the meeting, you consent to being recorded. By consenting and attending the meetings virtually or in person, participants also agree to recordings being posted to YouTube or other distribution services. So that's our preamble for the night. Kick things off with a set of minutes from our last meeting. Council Township of Armour approved the minutes of the public meeting held on June 10th, 2025 as circulated. Can I get a mover? Dorothy's on the board. And a seconder, Rod. Any errors, omissions, updates? All those in favor? And that's carried. And our second set, Council Township of Armour approved the minutes of the regular council meeting held on June 10th, 2025. Sure. Jerry. We'll put Wendy up and everybody's on the board. Any errors, omissions, edits? All those in favor? And that's carried. We are off. Do we have any declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof based on tonight's agenda? Okay, none noted. Tonight we have no delegations and we have no accounts for approval. Allison, I see that you're on there, and after making this mistake in the last meeting, I'm going to move your agenda item up so you don't have to wait until 10 o'clock. To present yours. So we're going to move you up to just before reports after bylaws.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, thanks, Alison. Okay, first up, we have 3 applications, numbers 4, 5, and 6 in your agenda package. First one is consent BO 27-25 and 28-25, Tom Stevenson. And we will read the resolution in first, and then we'll have questions for Shar. Council of the Township of Armour hereby support the severance applications BO 27-25 and BO 28-25, part lots 17 and 18, concessions 7 and 8, submitted by Tom Stevenson, subject to the following conditions. Reference plan or other evidence discloses that the severed property contains a road deviation maintained by the municipality as public road. The applicant shall survey and transfer such road deviation to the municipality. Applicant convey required cash in lieu of parkland dedication to the Township of Armour as per current bylaw. Should consent approval for the retained parcel be requested by the applicant, whether upon application or amendment, then the requirement for cash in lieu shall apply to the retained parcel as well, and that the road supervisor confirm that a suitable location for a new entrance on the proposed severed lots can be properly constructed to municipal standards. Should signage be required, such as hidden driveway signs, the applicant shall cover the costs of signs and posts. Sure. Gonna move her, Rod. Sure. Jerry. So, Shar, this one looked pretty straightforward and the planner supports it, but any other comments?
Oh, I have a question.
Yep.
Part 7, the 42R3299, is that owned by M&R?
That's probably waterfront, is it?
Well, it's not,
You got the survey? Is that what you're looking at?
pardon me?
What are you looking at, the survey?
I'm looking, I've got the survey in front of me, and this part 7 goes around the lake.
Yeah. That's 100-foot shore road.
I think the M&R owns all the way around that lake.
I thought they did.
Yeah. That's why it only goes up to the water's edge, or up to that.
Okay,
Doesn't go to the water.
so it doesn't go to the water's edge, and that's still
No.
owned by the province, basically. Okay.
Yeah, it's not 66 feet, it's 100.
It's 100 feet, okay, yeah. That was my only question, thank you.
Any other questions for Shar on this one? We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? And that's carried. And next up, we have our subdivision application. So on Deer Lake. Assume you folks are all here for that one.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll read in the resolution, the long one, and then we'll have our discussion and questions, and we've got lots of comments from our planner and as well as other correspondents. Whereas the Township of Armour has received a comprehensive planning report from the municipal planner concerning the application for draft plan approval for subdivision S01-24 Prentice, proposing 15 residential lots, 2 common element condominium blocks on lands legally described as part of Lot 23 Concession 2 and all of Lot 23 Concession 1 in the Township of Armour. Whereas the planner's review included a thorough analysis of historical approvals, environmental constraints, relevant official plan and zoning by policies, and multiple peer-reviewed technical studies. And whereas the report concludes with specific planning recommendations to ensure environmental protection, developmental compatibility, and conformity with municipal and provincial policies. Now for there be it resolved that the Council of Township of Armour supports the recommendations of the municipal planner dated June 16th, 2025, and directs staff to convey the following to the Southeast Parry Sound District Planning Board as conditions or modifications for any draft plan approval for subdivision S01-24. Condition 1, limit the draft plan to 14 lots. That the number of proposed residential lots be reduced from 15 to 14 in recognition of the 1996 OMB order and related MMH draft plan approval, and to uphold past negotiated settlements that established a cap based on both water quality and development compatibility within the Deer Lake community. Condition 2, no, we're still going. There's 5. Condition 2, ensure compliance with lot frontage requirements. That the lot fabric of the proposed subdivision continue to conform to section 2.4.3B of the Armour official plan and zoning bylaw number 27, 1995, particularly respecting 90-meter frontages for lots within identified deer wintering habitat. Number 3, restrict development on lots 13 to 15. That proposed lots 13 to 15 reconfigured as lots 13 and 14 based on number 1 condition. Be tied and entitled to upland parcels of at least 2 hectares on the west side of block 16, rezoned by exception to be subject to the provisions of the Lakeshore Residential Zone, notwithstanding the provisions of the rural zone, and that reconfigured lots 13 and 14 maintain their existing wetlands protection zoning. The wet and the non-wetland portion of these lots on the east side of the block 16 be added to the plan of condominium as common element parkland. Condition 4, prevent future backlot development. A 0.3 meters reserve be added along blocks 16 and 17, where they abut lands labeled as additional lands owned by the applicant and across the road stub in block 16 beyond the cul-de-sac approaching Nolte Lane, and that the additional lands owned be rezoned to restrict future residential development except for the proposed building lots titled to lots 13 and 14 described above. Item 5, cash in lieu, that the applicant convey the required cash in lieu of parkland dedication to the Township of Armour as per the current bylaw. And further, that the council reaffirms its commitment to sustainable lakefront development, protection of sensitive wildlife and aquatic habitat, and adherence to the township's official plan and comprehensive zoning bylaw. Now you can,
Okay.
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 Seconder Jerry, okay. There's bound to be questions on this one, and if you want any part of the resolution repeated, just let me know.
I'm just having a hard time finding lot 16 on this diagram. Was it merged with a different one because of the,
Which, what are you looking at? You on your,
I'm on page,
Over there. Might be that one.
It's like,
It's block 16 on
Maybe
line.
it says,
block 16, I'm sorry, thank you, thank you. I was like, I can't find this
it's
at all.
I did have a few questions for Shar, but her and I discussed it this afternoon. I was a little confused about what his intention for 13, 14, and 15 was.
So this is block
So my
7.
understanding.
This is block 15, we're block 16 there, okay.
Lots, and that there wouldn't be any development on this side of the road. But any development could be on 2 2-acre parcels on the west side of block 16 if they were added to the front.
So it would be on the other side of the road.
Yeah,
The
so,
same as Skyline is.
yep,
Yeah.
that's exactly it with the example.
So that makes sense to me, because I mean, there's not much land outside of the wetlands designation line on the lakeside. On 13, 14, or 15.
So. I believe you touched on, this will be a private road? Would it be like a condo? Oh, thank you.
Like Millie's Way is a condominium.
Okay, so that would be part of the deed, right?
Yep.
Not pertaining to us.
So 14, 15, 16 originally had, like, they had marked out building envelopes on those in the original plan, right?
Yes, so
Yeah.
13, 14, and 15, Bob would like all merged to us, shown as one lot because of the amount of wetlands.
Yeah.
And then proposing that to give them, because that would reduce it down to 12, his recommendation is 14. That you add 2 lots on the other side of block 16, where they say that they're gonna add it to the lands to the north. So they don't develop on the lakeside.
So 2 lots end up over here.
The other side, that's what point number 3 is, or 4, 3 or 4, when he speaks of. the 2-hectare lots on the west side of block 16. That's what he's saying,
Yeah, which is recommendation 3 of 4 there.
and that would give them their 14 lots.
Okay.
Cause when you guys have a copy of the
Yeah.
approved one from 1996, they've reconfigured the road at the south. And changed some of the lot sizes down by the water's edge. Now Bob's saying that they still will need to adjust the ones that are at the south end, were in the deer yard. He wants them to be 90 meters. For road or for frontage.
I believe that's right in our official plan.
Yeah. Bob's done a lot of work on these, and he's gone through every planner's report and recommendation. He says in his letter that he went through every one of the submissions from the 1990s. So. And he's referenced them in his report.
And Melissa's planning report has basically the same comments, right?
Melissa's, I'll be honest, I just skimmed them. I was more interested in what Bob's been saying. But she sent another one recently that I guess it pretty much mimics the first one that she sent the day before, but Linda had her summarize the recommendations in the so it's a longer document.
Yeah, it's a lot of reading.
The planning board, they have all the reports of association as well.
Yeah.
Know where Bob stands with this one.
Well, I think Bob was putting a fair amount of merit in the previous OMB hearing and the results of that.
That, and he's putting a lot on the lake development and it not being counted about the number of trailers.
Yeah.
And which ones are seasonal and load on the lake.
But even with that, though, like there were all sorts of different reports on the lake studies, but the last one said that it could still withstand 53 lots.
But the letters dating back into the 90s spoke about trailer parks and the number of trailers.
Yeah, they had ignored it.
Boat traffic that increases because of it.
Yeah. And the other one that said that you could have 845 lot, that was crazy, that one, yeah. Where's the 0.3 meter zone? It says on between blocks 16 and 17, along blocks 16 and 17. So is it all the way around?
So I think he wants it right at the end of 17 because you've got the property owners.
That's-
And the family owns.
That's where the turnaround is?
Yeah, yeah, he wants a block there. And then I think he wants it to extend all the way up.
beside the road
No,
or up the lot line there?
up the lot line.
Okay.
So that they don't, otherwise it would,
Or to keep them from, okay.
Oh, where do you mean here, Sharp? One here? This lot line?
I think it wants it all the way up
All the
here.
way up, yeah.
So that it doesn't, we don't run the risk of backlot development. You have that 1 foot reserve.
Like a fence.
Yes. We did the same thing at the end of Horizon too,
Yes.
right, to stop development.
It's very common in
Because it would-
subdivisions to have the 1 foot reserve, yeah.
Otherwise you would have been looking at an extension all the way up to Blind Line on
Yeah.
that. So
And the 1 foot reserve would be owned by who?
that'd be a township.
Township?
Yeah, we can get the 1 foot, right, Wendy?
Usually we do,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to make that clear, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause in the past, then somebody, if you created some new lots. I remember days where they couldn't actually have legal driveways out to the road because it was a 1 foot reserve, so they had to come back to the township to get that reserve,
Like the 1 foot reserve at the end of Horizon Road was never transferred to the township when
Yeah.
that subdivision was made. And it remained in the property owner's name. Couldn't develop it. It was the six wide, but they got a tax bill every year for it. Like $2. So they were happy to get rid of that.
it has to be clear who owns it because they tend to get messed up.
So the 14th lot, I'm still not clear as to where, because there's 13 all here, right?
13, 14, 15, so you got 12.
So these were 3 and 3 before. Does the 3 to,
From 1 to 12,
What are you looking at? You're looking at the old one.
Gold map, he's looking.
You don't want the old one.
You're just making it right there, right?
What's that?
Moving it, the new one would be right there.
That's the new 13,
Those together.
14, 15.
If they want to make those
Yeah,
one. and
There's
make
the
them-
old, there's the old.
okay, yeah.
I was saying, putting, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, that was the old
Then-
one. That's a two.
When do you want over there?
Over here,
Big, right?
a couple, yeah.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, so like 13, 14, 15 are gonna be merged as one, and then on the other side of the block 16
Mhm.
would be the other two that he's proposing, okay.
But he's not saying the size, he's just saying a minimum of 2 acres.
minimum 2
Or it could just be
hectares.
left on the current lot, could it not? If they didn't want to make it into lots,
What current law?
like, could they not just retain it as retained with,
If they want to give up 2 more lots, they could.
okay. Because at this point, they didn't want to be developing that part of the land. If they wanted to continue to not develop that, they could just not make it 2 lots, correct?
Mhm.
So has the applicant seen the conditions, heard about the conditions, or there's been no discussion back on it?
Well, I haven't sent anything through at this point because there was no point if you guys didn't support it.
Okay, so just summarizing again, the conditions, we're limiting it to 14 instead of 15 lots. Ensuring the compliance with the 90-meter deer wintering habitat frontage. Restricting the lot development on lots 13 to 15, that ties in with the 14 lot. Okay. The 0.3 meter reserve to stop the backlot development along blocks 16 and 17, and the usual cash in lieu. Anybody else see any other conditions that they would want or concerns about the conditions that Bob suggested here?
Can you read that 1 foot reserve again? Did you say lot 16?
Blocks. So it's a 0.3 meter reserve be added along blocks 16 and 17, where the abut lands labeled as additional lands owned by the applicant.
Yeah.
And across the road stub in block 16.
So that reserve is going up here, Shar.
Yeah, I just noticed, yeah.
It's not going up this lot line. It's going along the block 17 and the block 16 up to the road.
Well, being on a private road, you wouldn't get backlot anyways, because you have no road frontage. Correct?
Well, if it becomes part of the subdivision.
It's a condominium road. I'm not sure what the legalities.
But you're right, it's no different than the Boyces.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
But putting that 0.3 meter stipulation, it would stop any kind of backlot anyway.
Yeah, yeah, it would, yeah. On the, on this, these two parcels here, yeah.
Any other questions for Shar? So this one's not on the agenda for planning board, because planning board's tomorrow night, and I think if it was, the feeling was it would just be too tight, depending on what Linda would have to pull together between now and tomorrow night, so. I'm
I
sure,
don't wanna rush a subdivision, right? This one seems as,
Shouldn't-
well, it has been 30 years. Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? And that's carried. Well, on to the next stage. All right, next up, we have another application. Site plan agreement, 98 Doe Lake Peninsula. I'll read this one in as well. Council of Township of Armour accept the application for site plan approval submitted by Glenn Slater, Heather Elizabeth Gray, David Austin Gray, and Michael Allen Gray, concession 3, part lot 142R-10213, part 7, and 42R-22771, part 1, described as 98 Doe Lake Peninsula, and request the municipal planner proceed with drafting the site plan agreement. Get a mover, Wendy. Seconder. Rod.
Just fact finding for me. We don't have to approve site plans anymore, do we?
yes.
We always do?
Well, yes and no.
Okay.
So in the Planning Act, we don't. The authority has been delegated to staff. But John and I had the conversation because of Bill 23, they were pushing it all through. I'm still bringing them through to you. Don't have to get the resolution passed authorizing Bob. But I find that having council's eyes review it, specifically Wendy's caught some stuff. You caught the big one with Katrine storage with that change in the elevation with the proposed extra row of shipping storage containers. So I like to bring it through so that you guys have a look at it. The other thing is with that authority, we don't have to pass a bylaw with these site plans. We can just do it with staff. I don't want to do that because agreements get lost when they don't have a site plan or a bylaw.
Yeah.
And we still register them on title.
Okay,
We're not slow at getting the site plans approved, but long story short, we don't have to. I'm just doing it.
I just felt like it had been a minute since we had seen one, so I was like, why is this one particular?
Vince was concerned that some municipalities, it really slowed down. the
Oh, okay,
process of
okay.
Construction. So I think that's why they've said they didn't have to do anything.
Okay,
It's so much easier to track administrative wise if there's a bylaw.
Yeah.
So it makes perfect sense.
But it was a good question, but yeah, we don't have to. I do.
I'm glad we're still doing it. It's nice to see them.
I think it's important that you see the development and what's being proposed and.
So I do have a question about this one, because it looks closer than 100 feet to the lake. I can't tell what the,
So it's a demo rebuild.
what is it? So I couldn't see if it was a demo.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's an existing footprint, okay.
To call on it too, because I couldn't figure out why we were allowing development on the shore road allowance. Because it shows the 30-meter setback way back here.
But it is above the regulatory flood limit, so you're above that flood elevation for Doe Lake. You see that blue line that's in front of the proposed cottage? It says approximate regulatory floodplain limit. And that's on
Oh, I see. Yeah.
page 67. Yeah, so the septic is still meeting the 30-meter setback. And based on what the surveyor told us, it's quite the drop down to the lake there.
Yeah, I had an issue with it, like it said to Shar, I know we insist on above the floodplain elevation, but we also want them back 100 feet.
Yeah.
If it's at all possible.
Yeah, these guys, we did discuss it. They can't go back because of the terrain. And it's steep and it's rocky. And this is the one where we're actually we're also sorting out the Shore Road where it was originally paid for.
So we used to make someone do site-specific zoning amendments if they couldn't put setback. We have a number of them that were done site-specific. But we made a change to our zoning bylaw that we don't do site-specifics anymore, we just automatically.
It's legal non-conforming as well, with a demo rebuild.
So they're gonna have some fun getting up to that septic bed. If there's a hill right behind the
We'll have
house,
to pump everything in.
up and straight uphill.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So later on, one of your bylaws is the transfer of the Shore Road for this property.
So, okay, that was, and we had that discussion at a
Yeah.
previous meeting. Yeah. That's why this all came back, because they wanted to do this project, right?
Yep, and the surveyor's the one that caught it. So everyone else on the peninsula owns a Shore Road.
Except for this. one.
But our mapping shows that everybody owns right to the water.
That was just a mess. That was a screw.
You can see it right on the-
lawyer not registering the things correctly. I would put money on.
But it's wonky because it's sort of like Owl Lake, everybody owns right to the,
Yeah.
right to the water's edge. Same with the peninsula, but for some reason, that lot doesn't. But our map shows that
Shows it does.
it does. It wasn't until the surveyor did the survey and he pulled up the information at the land registry and caught it.
Okay, well, we have a mover and a seconder. Any other questions before we vote? All those in favor? And that's carried. All right, we're into bylaws. Council of Township of Armour have read and approved bylaw 40-2025, being a bylaw to enter into an interim agreement for the provision of sharing fire services. We authorize the mayor and clerk to sign this bylaw and affix the seal of the corporation there too. And mover, Wendy. Second. Dorsey,
Sorry, who moved that?
Wendy. I thought we did at Tri-County, or is this the one where we had to change a date or something?
So you signed the agreement at council, but there was, you didn't pass a bylaw. though.
No.
That's for council, right?
Just approving what we did.
I wonder if the other two will.
They did, they already
Oh,
have.
did they done?
I wrote the bylaw for them.
Of course she did.
I'm like, hey, guys, we forgot.
It's just too late to change that percentage to 50.01 then. Okay, any questions about the shared services agreement for fire? All those in favor? And that's passed. This one relates to the application we just saw. Council of Township of Armour have read and approved bylaw 41-25, being a bylaw to stop up and close and convey the original Shore Road allowance described as part lot 1, concession 3, fronting 98 Doe Lake Peninsula on Little Doe Lake, and designated as part 1 on plan 42R-22771. We authorize the mayor and clerk to sign this bylaw and affix the seal of corporation there too.
Sure.
Jerry. And a seconder.
Here.
I was like, is it gonna be Rod? Rod's like, it's gonna be Dorothy. When he's like, it's me.
You're not paying attention, it's me.
So just cleaning up that old Shore Road allowance. Any questions for Shore on this one? All those in favor? And that is carried. And our last bylaw, Council of Township of Armour approved bylaw 42-2025, being a bylaw to approve a long-term loan application to OILC to finance the replacement of the North Picker Lake Road Bridge and the development of the Highway 11 and Highway 520 industrial parks, and to rescind bylaw 33-2025. And we authorize the mayor and clerk to sign this bylaw and affix the seal of the corporation there too. A mover.
Sure.
Rod and Jerry. So we just made some changes in the agreement. I don't know if, is this an Allison question?
It is.
No, this
Question.
it was just to, well, Allison, you can answer if you want to, pretty straightforward though.
Yeah, it's because we were adding with the changes coming out with the industrial park. We were adding that loan into this loan. So Infrastructure Ontario said it's easier to combine it all under one loan because we already had the bridge loan in progress. So just amend the bylaw to add those other two projects to the same loan, and then it's all one application.
You can have to go through the underwriting process twice or.
Yeah.
You know,
Is there anything else we can think of that we could add?
They did ask. They did ask that.
Hopefully this is the last amendment.
Yeah.
You're getting pretty good at them though.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Allison. Any questions for Allison or Steve? All those in favor? And that's carried. Okey dokey. Well, normally we'd be jumping into reports, but because I wasted Allison's evening in our last meeting, and we're gonna move item 28 up and talk about it now. So this is the staff report on the employee benefit plan upgrades. Item 28 in your package. And we have a staff report. And Allison, if you want to just give us a quick summary, we've all read it, but if you want to give us a quick summary, that'd be great.
So Dave and I had our meeting with the benefit company, and they informed us that we have a big surplus. So at May 31st, our surplus with them is 24,000 and change. So they negotiated our renewal to be an $11,000 savings. So that would be huge along with the surplus that we have. So then we thought maybe we should look at the benefit coverage that we are offering the staff to see if it's sufficient enough. If we were to increase what we're offering, how much would that cost? So if we were to increase the benefit coverage for chiropractor massages, all that stuff to the $1,000 a year, and then increase the vision care to the $500 every 2 years. Bottom line is we're still going to save money. Our benefit renewal then will be a savings of $3,300 a year compared to what we're paying this year. And we still have that surplus of $24,000 sitting there as well.
What happens with the surplus? Like, is it like a health spending account where if at some point down the road we might use it, or is it just kind of sit there?
So it's called an ASO plan, what we have. So we basically, they try to estimate what we will spend and set our rate based on what our employees are spending. So the previous 2 years we had a deficit, so that's why they put us up so high this year. And now we're paying way too much for what our employees are spending. So the surplus can stay there or we can request a refund. I would suggest just leaving the surplus in the account for now, see how the plan goes after the renewal. And we do have some staffing changes that will be happening. So I'd say leave it there for now, see how the plan runs, and we can always request the surplus to be refunded, or we can just leave it there.
Yeah, so it's like a reserve, basically.
Kind
It
of,
can
yes.
also- It can also be used to pay what we're paying, like to pay into our premium.
To go against the premiums, yeah.
Yeah.
We had a huge jump, we could use it for.
And it's unpredictable, right? Because you have
Very
1 or 2 employees that are having a bad year. Yeah.
Very unpredictable, yeah.
Or like 2 pairs of glasses, right?
Yeah, it doesn't take much.
2 pairs of glasses.
Yeah, that was one of the upgrades, was to go from 300 to 500 for vision, because the $300 doesn't pay for an appointment and a pair of glasses now. I mean, the point was, I think when we brought this up, that it was always there to subsidize some of the costs. But to give you an example, I'm out of my contact lens allowance within the first year. It doesn't quite get me through the full thing. So I think there's always a copay. There's always a notion that people should be co-paying, but it does help get a little bit further. Like I can remember on some benefit plans getting 2 pairs of glasses in your eye exam, which got you through the 2 years, or at least the lion's share of it. But it's prices are going up, and
Yeah, Yeah, like the prices of physio and massage therapy, chiropractor, like all those prices have increased substantially since COVID, basically. So,
Well, I mean, if our premiums are going down and our coverage is going up, it's a win. Like, yeah. Sure.
Okay, I just gotta find the resolution for this one.
I'm also pretty sure that the Township of Armour staff are, we must have all taken out stock in Algonquin Chiropractic in Huntsville because we all go to the same chiropractor. Like, what are they doing to you people?
That's where everybody meets.
You guys should have them come here. Everybody's lunch hour is an adjustment.
Okay, I'll read in the resolution. The staff report from the treasurer dated June 24th, 2025 regarding an upgrade to the township's paramedical services coverage and vision care coverage be received, and that council approves the following enhancements to the employee group benefits plan effective July 1st, 2025. Paramedical services coverage be increased from $700 per year to $1,000 per year. Vision care coverage be increased from $300 to $500 every 24 months. That the cost of these enhancements totaling $7,867.60 annually be funded through the existing benefits plan surplus and annual premium savings with no additional impact to the municipality's operating budget. Dorothy moves. Seconder through Rod. Any other questions for Allison or Dave? Okay, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thanks for your work on that, Allison. Appreciate it.
thank you.
And you're welcome to stay if you want. but-
Waiting for that.
That's okay. Yeah, have a good evening.
Hey. Okay, I think we can. We're going okay here. So we'll go back up to reports. We'll get through reports. And then maybe we'll take a break. We'll see how it goes. We'll back up to item 10. And this is the Health Council report from June 5th, but I've already talked about this one. I think I actually had the minutes hot off the press in our last meeting, so unless you guys have any other questions, there's no further updates. Our next meeting is July 3rd, next week. The only change to this is that the person we thought we were gonna get as our admin person, Kate, she's been swapped out by somebody else at the Ontario Health Team, Deb, who's gonna take over now because she actually lives closer to us. So she figured if she had to be there in person, I figured it was easier. Kate's in Graven, so that was a challenge. Next up, we have the Omega Highlands OPP detachment report. Item 11. Couple sets of minutes there. And they did look into the query that Charlene had made about safety on in certain areas.
Yeah, there's an email later on under unfinished business from the staff sergeant.
Oh, yeah. Okay, item 12. Minutes from the Historical Society, June 16th. Over to you for that one, Shar.
Right, well, you have, we have the draft minutes there. And we reviewed an engineer's report and passed a resolution regarding the barn.
Buildings.
Yeah, and that's later on. Now, there is a mention too of Lauren, Maine, and Benny Caldwell receiving the King Charles III coronation medals, I think it's called.
Yeah.
That's going to, there's gonna be some changes to that. So Diane was able to touch base with the MPs. Great MPP, Graydon Smith's office, and we're gonna make some changes to the time. Just because it was too tight on being a Friday afternoon at 3 o'clock.
Time and location will be a little different.
Yeah, and we had concerns of accessibility with Mark and Betty at the location. We like the idea of the Stan Darling Park, but I don't think that that's feasible for the seniors.
What are you thinking?
We're Legion. They're thinking 1 o'clock instead of 3 because it's fish and chips as well. So it gives them time to do it right at the Legion, and then they will do the refreshments right there. So the park is not an issue. There's can, handle if there's a change in the weather. And it's just a better location for.
Same day.
Same day.
I marked it in already, so I'll just check.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah. That hasn't been officially
Not
announced.
official yet.
I have to create the flyer.
Yeah, gotta keep it secret.
Yeah, that's hot off the press. That's a 4:35.
Yep.
Any other questions for sure? I think we've got some other. Item 26 comes up later under new business, so.
I like how the school is and the person beside the schoolhouse is utilizing kind of
He's
working as a
great.
community.
He's great at trying to, whenever he's hosting an event, he'll reach out to the historical society to see if they want to open the schoolhouse, so. yeah,
Jarv opened it for a school trip last
Did?
Jarv was there
Yeah,
and yeah, it was lovely and I took a picture of the teacher at the front with all the desks.
they
Can
did
you imagine?
because it was earlier that day. They said no one rang the bell, which was
Ah,
the old school bell, right? And I'm like, well, the kiddos probably didn't even know that existed. But I guess whenever they ring the bell, a whole bunch of stuff. Also. So yeah, try to remember that go again.
And yeah, but he's planted all kinds of trees, like incredible things are going on that property. It's wonderful.
That's it.
Thank you, Sharon. Next up, library board meeting of June 18th. Over to you, Rod.
Yeah, I don't have my notes. I didn't obviously leave them to the council or to the office though. They're, I get my meetings mixed up, whether it was the building committee. Or the library.
We've got Mavis is on there too, if we.
I know Lou or Ryan hasn't been showing up to the meeting, so they're gonna ask Nancy if she would like to be the rep for the library board. She's the rep for the building committee, so.
It doesn't make sense to have two separate.
I thought Sean Cotton was on the library board now.
Well, he is, but he didn't, oh, sorry, yeah, Ryan's not making, Sean's been appointed, but he hasn't been making the meetings either.
Oh, okay.
You're correct. What did I miss in the others?
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
Yes, we did not have a meeting in June, but we did have a
Oh,
committee
that's why.
today with Dave Gray. I don't know if perhaps we could summarize the meeting, Dave, in terms of what came up. And
Yeah,
how
give me a moment, yeah, so I can grab my notes. I didn't know what Councillor Blakeblock was gonna be speaking about,
so
but I did have them readily available.
I knew you would.
So the main bullet point of I think the intention of the building committee meeting and coming and having a chat with me was to catch us up to speed on what they perceive as some next steps. One of the notes that I guess now is a good part, good and early to bring it up was the notion of of ownership that's been batted around. At no point during the library board has there been a resolution passed or anything official with regard to them pursuing ownership, and it didn't seem like the building committee was leaning in that direction, that they were shooting for ownership. The $40,000 was to help support the studies and the build. They brought up the notion of giving them their money back for the studies. At the end of the day, that's why they raised those funds, according to the building committee, was to go towards some of the studies. The other thing that they had mentioned is they would love to see, as part of our, at the last meeting, we had discussed taking steps to be in a better state of readiness, regardless of what the partnership and the land and everything else looks like. They would like to see an RFP issued to support the development of an architectural plan for the building that they're looking for, or the building that's been discussed, as well as an engineer's report to go along with that. And I think costing that would be relatively got costing what those studies and what should be put in the RFP can be easily looked at. When they talked about ownership, they were talking, I think it was a difference between shareholder and stakeholder. I think they see themselves as stakeholders in the project and would like to be involved when the RFP is developed and when the proposals are being reviewed. There was some discussion about, the architect that was secured during the last iteration of reviewing the design of the building. And there was a point of clarification that they would like to make sure that any RFP that is developed by Armour leading the project, that their architect would get a copy of that, would be provided a copy of that so that they could submit a proposal. So there was chat about a lot of misunderstandings. Again, the ownership piece, it doesn't seem that they're really trying to pursue ownership. And so we addressed where that was brought up at Tri-Council, and there was some members of the board that felt that it would be appropriate to have ownership. But again, the building committee had not discussed that, and there has been no official decision trying to seek that. We didn't get off too far into the weeds about the Library Act and all that. We did discuss, however, though, at the meeting today that there's a lot of things at play. We needed to have an agreement in place, and we need that to speak to matters of capital as well as long range planning, and that needs to happen before a build can move too much further. But the general consensus was we can proceed with drafting the plan so that we have an idea of what the new library is going to cost as we're pursuing funding, or grants or fundraising and other methods. ACE was brought up as acting as advisors for or supports for pursuing funding, which is an easy conversation to have. But the main bullet point is we need to know how much the building is going to cost before we can raise funds for it. And I did mention too that we can't apply for funding if the project is half baked. If we know we're pursuing $1 million and we only have 600,000 at this current point, there's still a shortfall, but we need to understand what that shortfall is. And then we talked about the new library agreement should be speaking to not just cost shares for operations, but cost sharing for capital development and what that may look like. So they realize that there may be some considerations that have to be made throughout the agreement process. However, there are some steps further the conversation we had last meeting. There are some steps that we can be taking to be shovel ready, and that was where their encouragement was. Did I land that okay, Nieves?
Perfectly. You touched all the points that we discussed. Beautiful. Thank you. The most important thing is, yes, the library agreement with the 3 municipalities. And it was apparent at the meeting that perhaps we do need 2 agreements, one for operations and one for capital projects. That way everyone is, I think, happy, or everyone involved sees their concerns met with these agreements. Absolutely. Yep.
Is the agreement I'm assuming it's on the agenda for our next Tri-Council 8-day committee meeting?
Yeah, there's a bit of homework that the subcommittee has. That's to review the Library Act, review the existing agreement, and come back with some provisions that we'd like to see changed or added. Wendy and I spoke very briefly about that today, but I believe that we've landed on July 2nd for our next meeting. Either that or the 8th, but the 2nd seems to be the prevailing meeting date, which would allow us to potentially have a second one prior to the next Tri-Council.
Probably gonna need.
Yeah.
I would suggest, rather than 2 separate agreements, we might be able to cover it off with one agreement with 2 different schedules, a schedule that strictly speaks to operating and then a schedule that speaks to capital.
Yeah, I think the problem with the current agreement is that it's kind of silent, just like the other agreements were on capital. So
capital and future planning. We discussed that about building those things into a new library agreement. I agree that a single agreement with multiple schedules and attacking multiple items makes sense.
Yeah. Was there any further discussion about like this property or anything like that, or did the building committee have any?
Well, I revisited what we discussed at our last council meeting. At this point, We can, as Armour Township, we can cost out what this, we had the conversation at the last meeting, what's stopping us from moving forward? I think getting the studies and getting a cost for the building is something that we can easily do in stride. I did mention that right now we need to make sure that the partnership is solidified. The staff report from March 11th has gone unanswered. And now correct me if I'm wrong here, Nieves, but I believe Ryerson said that they had addressed that. I haven't seen a copy of that resolution yet. And I discussed,
Might be tonight, maybe.
could be, yeah. And you know, I think there'll be there's some other considerations on the table for later on in the evening, but we need to have that agreement in place for that as the direction that we are taking as a group of partners. So there's still some work that needs to be done on the partnership.
Right.
We got off into the weeds a little bit talking about, you know, the dollars and cents and who's paying what, but at this point that's immaterial to taking a few steps to move the development a little bit further forward. And whether a building design is a 5,000 square foot building design goes here or anywhere else, it'd be nice to have a cost of what the building is. Of course, generally speaking, the land servicing costs as compared to the general construction, they're not going to be immaterial, but they're going to be lesser.
That's a minor thing.
And you're going to need to do land servicing and land preparation on any property that you buy to one extent or another. Yeah.
Okay. So one question, I don't know if you were watching the others. I went to the Berks Falls Council meeting and I forgot to stick around long enough for Nancy to give a report on, it was the building committee that we had met. And Nancy was going to take the library board's concerns to their next council meeting to get those issues addressed. Do you know if they got brought up?
I'm afraid I was not present at that council meeting, so I cannot speak on what's
Okay.
reported. So no, I'm afraid not.
Yeah, and I forgot. I went through the agenda and I saw council reports, and I thought there's nothing here I wanted to listen to, and then I got home thinking I wanted to. It was Nancy's. I wanted to hear her report and the answer, but I didn't get it. I didn't hang around.
You're right. And at Ryerson Township, I was in attendance at their council meeting today, and they had passed the revised budget, and they agreed to the resolution to give back to the library board the money that we had put forth for the library project. But I will send you that resolution, Dave, and so you can have it with the library project package.
Right, and the Nieves was kind enough to send along this afternoon the needs assessment as well as their strategic plan and other guiding documents that they have. I had gone looking a few weeks ago to see if I could find it, but there's I think about 3 new library build folders on our drives, and so she sent that so I could put it in one that I knew where to find it. So I can kind of delve through that as well and then see if we can clean what we can. So we've got all that information. And another interesting point was brought up, and that is on top of the costs to develop a new library, the costs of maintaining that versus the current what we have now also need to be looked at. Now, I made the joke of everybody loves the idea of a public pool until they're stuck with the bill on an ongoing basis. So also evaluating that as we move forward and making sure that we're kind of comparing apples to apples for carrying costs. That also include the whatever financing or financial solution is put into place. So those are some, I think, important points to keep in the front end of planning. That is that on top, new building may have is it going to cost more to heat it? Is it going to cost more to, which we may not have, but we need to make provisions for. And anyway.
Very
think the meeting
positive
went well.
meeting, excellent. Yeah, excellent meeting, very positive, and everyone came out thinking that yes, we are closer to something. Yes.
So highlight just on Dave's comment, I couldn't, back to my conversation of the last meeting, I think it was, I couldn't understand why we would hold up. I don't know why Berks Falls would hold us up when they said they weren't willing to commit to the project for 3 to 5, possibly more years. But with the, like Dave just said, the added cost could be what they're not ready to
Yeah.
handle. Like if we said, okay, we'll build the building, give us the land, we'll build the building, and there it is. The square footage is quite a bit more, you know, it's gonna cost more to heat, it's gonna cost
The
more.
operating hydro, 20,000 a year might affect.
There's gonna be a lot more expense to it than we're dealing with right now, so. That I could see where Burke's Falls would say, well, we're not ready for the library budget to be increased by that much.
There was a notion around the table that, why can't we move forward with what we have? We have a commitment, we have land donated, we have commitments financially from 2 of the partners. And that's where the notion of, we can't move forward with a half-baked, half-funded project, right? So like before we can even talk about who's paying what, we need to know what needs to be paid. And I talked about the timeline, we're a year-ish out from, from heading into our elections, and potentially some municipalities getting closer to lame duck, and if that is going to be the case. And there's a lot of things coming down the pipeline very quickly. I said, and there has been some discussion around various tables that I've sat out where it's, well, is it 1 to 3 years? Is it 3 to 5 years? Is it 5 to 10? And I think there was a couple of gulps, but the general consensus was, well, it'd be nice if it was the 1 to 3. And well, this is what the decision makers have to establish.
Right.
And this gets flushed out during the agreement process. And we'll have to see where those conversations go. But the main meat and potatoes is, I think we can probably do some studies. We can move forward with
These are what we're dealing with. Cost point of view.
and it'll be interesting. We did get a resolution back from Burke's Falls with respect to the giving the money back conversation and resolution that we passed at the last meeting, and that was kind of met with, well, we didn't ask for the money back, and we have nothing leading us towards ownership, nor do they have a formal request to the municipalities to have the authority to have ownership. So my general conclusion for that was they're not looking for ownership. I think they're on the same page. That doesn't really make a whole pile of sense. They just want to be consulted, and they want to be a stakeholder party as things move forward. So
I think that's fine as long as the full library board is on the same page, because it was clear in the tri-council meeting that they weren't necessarily, so that causes confusion for us, so it would be good to have that clarified.
well,
Yeah,
we
I
did.
think that at the table this morning, there was a trustee that was still adamant that that money be left where it was, only so that we show, or the library board shows the 3 municipalities that we are committed, that we are serious, that we want this project to go forward sooner rather than later. Now, it is my personal feeling that now the 3 municipalities are working relatively close together on this project, and so we are a bit farther than we were a year ago, when the library board was trying to find a way to engage the 3 municipalities to pay attention to the needs of the library.
Yeah.
So it's up to the rest of the library board to convince this trustee that, okay, let's move forward. I think they've heard us. I think that the project's on the go, and it's just a matter of agreements here and more meetings there, and yes, and it will happen.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any questions for Navis or Rod? Okay, next up we have, back to Rod again, the Agricultural Society.
We're just planning on the fair. We went over the list of what we were, who's doing what. It's pretty well, everything's booked. Everybody's signed up. Everybody's been given a space. Wendy's name was mentioned.
Yeah, I haven't heard a call back, haven't had my call back from Wilma, so I don't know what time she wants it. I can call.
Yeah, because I can't remember. I think,
The only
I
reason,
think you're in the afternoon.
the only reason I wanna know is because I've told Danica when the Aggies don't need me, I'll be available whenever she needs me.
Okay.
So she just needs to know when I'm committed to.
Yeah, well, we've got a list on that.
Okay. She told me she'd get back to me after this meeting, so.
Okay. We've had issues with every time it rains, there's people go over to the fairgrounds, be it in a truck, four-wheeler or a dirt bike, and they roar around. They like to make ruts. They happened to do it the day after our maintenance man had spent 8 hours of grooming. And then it rained all day. Was it a Friday or a Thursday, whatever it was, it rained. And that night, people were roaring through there. They've got ruts going through the grass, through the mud. So I got authorization to go and get Leonard to make some signs. And we're gonna, as soon as they're made, we're gonna post no unauthorized vehicles beyond this point. The signs will probably get run over, bent over, stolen, kicked out of, like, whatever, but I mean, as long as they will be there, whether I have to keep digging them in, I'll dig them in so they are non-removable, but the general public will get the vehicles, like if you go beyond a certain point, people are gonna be watching.
Yeah.
And at that point, I'm not sure, I didn't understand, because realistically, it's private property, the Agricultural Society's lease, they have the 99-year lease with the village. So somebody had made a comment that we have to put no unauthorized vehicles permitted beyond this point as per bylaw. I was like, well, the Agricultural Society doesn't do bylaws. We can't enforce a bylaw. It's private property, realistically.
I think it should say no vehicles beyond this point as per Rod's law.
Yeah.
I think that's way more threatening than a bylaw. Be like, Rod's that.
I told Leonard to leave a space if it deems as per bylaw, if it makes it, so I haven't talked to the bylaw officer, but somebody had said if there's a bylaw, if it's bylaw stated and it's actually done, then the bylaw officer can pursue it. But their bylaw is only there for 1 day, for half a day a week.
Yeah.
So it's almost pointless to deal with a bylaw in my mind.
I
think.
wonder if you spoke to, or, I mean, the students directly, or you spoke to the grade 8 teacher and maybe a few teachers from the high school. I don't know I mean, I know people know better, but I don't know if it occurs to them what they're doing. Like in their mind, they're like, hey, this is a field.
Damages.
I'm just ripping it up, like having a good time. Meanwhile, if somebody said, do you understand that somebody spent 8 hours of your parents' taxpaying dollars to fix this yesterday? They might go, oh my goodness, I just saw open field. Right? When it's just like the public knowledge.
Good thought. But one parent takes her son over there with a four-wheeler so he can rip around in the mud. They know who it is.
Is that right?
So it's a good thought, but we have one situation that like, a couple of board members walk regularly over there and they tried to get somebody's attention and they like ignored them or whatever. But when they pulled their camera, they fled. And then these people happened to say, well, you know, if I was to mention this to your mom, well, please don't tell my mom.
That always works.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of. I am 63. I mean, I learned to ride a dirt bike, a snowmobile. I learned to drive a truck over there. Like it was, we won't do, like it was dune buggies over there. There was no thought. And it's come to a time when somebody's going to be responsible with somebody trips and breaks their freaking ankle or their leg, whatever. Like Dad has commented, there's a gentleman walks his dog at 11:15 every night. Now that poor bugger goes over there and walks right after Carl has cleared it or cleaned it all up, great. But if he just thinks I can walk through here in my sleep and then some clown's gone over there with a 4x4.
Yeah.
It's Burke's Falls, and I know I'll use this as an example. Burke's Falls are very famous at saying we're liable, we're legally liable. Well, we're legally liable for that land as the Agricultural Society, as Burke's Falls is. So if you look at parks are actually pedestrian parks, park wardens or staff, they can open a gate and drive wherever they want. It needs to be almost of that mindset. I don't expect it to happen overnight. It's just going to be a slow process, but it's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
That was sort of where we were going on that. Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing that was, we've had a subcommittee that is trying to work with Burke's Falls, with the Agricultural Society, or what we wish, what they wish, where we're gonna do. And honestly, they haven't done a damn thing. So I said to Wilma, I said, I'm gonna sit back and watch. I said, but at year one, I'm gonna ask what got done. Like, your meeting is pointless, like, unless you actually do something. They have these great conversations and everybody says everybody's working well together, but what have we done? No answers have ever been answered, and nothing has ever been
Because
accomplished.
that came out of Tri-Council. They were supposed to be working together on.
Yeah, well, there really hasn't done, like, I asked for signs almost a year ago. Burke's Falls was in agreement to it, and I said, well, let's maybe put our heads together. What do you want on a sign? Tell me what you want on a sign. I'm going making them. I'm dying to plant them. To hear, we'll probably get a request to go to Burke's Falls Council after I plant them, but that's part of our agreement. Like, it's the agricultural society. The Agricultural Society's wishes. They're the lease owners, like Burke's Falls. It's not we're dumping it on Burke's Falls as a surprise. We've had this conversation.
Yeah. Okay, questions for Ron on the Ag Society? We've got Tri-Council notes, which I think we've seen already, May 26th. Any other reports? I saw the DSAB report come through.
Yeah,
We've got a resolution on that one later.
yeah. When you miss meetings, it's not a good thing with the DSAP.
No,
You
you're done.
you're done.
Are they all Zoom meetings, Jerry?
Sorry,
Are they Zoom meetings, your DSAT, or
Yeah.
they're all Zoom?
not all Zoom, but majority are now.
Majority.
COVID has made it easy for everybody to do
Well,
Zoom
you're
meetings.
Spread out too.
Yeah. And one thing we did do in the Zoom meetings now is when we have a Zoom meeting, you have to turn the camera on so people know it's you.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And that's a good thing because when you're recording who's in the meeting, you can put a name up and it could be anybody's name. Oh, everybody has to have the camera on so people know that.
Well, and you're watching what's going on. You're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not turning it on and then
Going
going out and cutting your grass.
Other than that, we did have a special meeting this week too, and I ended up chairing the meeting because Rick couldn't make it. He was on the island working. And in regards to our KPMG, I think it's called, or KM,
KPMG.
just our audit, so all is good, so we're in good stead. So happy about that. And another little note in regards to our hatchery, we attended the Near North Environmental
Saw that.
place in Sunridge. It went over very well. And a lot of people are quite enthused with what we're doing. And today I had a phone call from Kevin Fitzsimmons from Alberta. He wants to come out and see our hatchery. They want to build another one. They built one, but they had a few little issues, nothing big. They raised just about 1.5 million almost. So they were quite happy with that, but they had some issues too. So I had a real nice long conversation with them, so looking forward to that, so.
Yeah, good.
I told him I'd fit him in between golf games. Good, he's good with that, so other than that, things are going good.
Okay, any other reports? Oh,
Soccer was canceled last night. We were supposed to have flip burgers and hot dogs for the KCC soccer. But it was so hot.
why did I think that was tonight?
It was basically.
It was last night and next,
Because I'm going to the one next week.
last night and this weekend.
Right.
Or sorry,
But I
last night and one
didn't
next.
miss it this time.
But I do wonder, I just happened to be in the office yesterday. Do we have a policy on outdoor employees that work outdoors and temperatures?
The landfill closed early.
So the roads went.
It's in, I believe it's in our health and safety policies.
Okay, so like I believe it's very necessary, and obviously we have very wise staff who can,
Yeah.
you know, determine that it's in their best interest. But there were a number of calls coming in with upset people because the decision was made. I mean, like it was 42 with humidity, like it's not a safe environment to be outside. There's no protection. They're outside. There's nowhere for them to go, right? So if it's not in our policy, I wonder if we need it to be, but if it is, fantastic.
Sure, I'm pretty sure it is.
Okay.
You can have Amy check on it, but I'm sure I'm sure
Yeah, well, I'll take a look.
it's covered.
I don't know if it's necessary, but I just felt like
Maybe
the call,
needs to be
need the
brought
back.
Needs to be-
No,
Well, yeah, and it may also be worthwhile too because I did ask that we put posts out, just letting people know that we were closing. That we were closing it, and of course, no one's gonna check Facebook when they got their pickup loaded.
Yeah.
But it may be worthwhile that in future posts, or even just as an awareness piece, like because I understand we're supposed to have some pretty warm days this summer.
Yeah.
Even signage at the site,
Yeah.
having to say that.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah,
yeah.
so like, in the event that it is over 30 degrees, we will be closed, so you don't even load up your truck because it's 30 degrees out,
Cause not everybody's on social media.
No, like that would be posted at the landfill to say, like, you could have it posted in January, in the event it is plus 30 degrees,
Well,
we will be closed.
there's another document going out to all the taxpayers. That could be put in that too.
Right, and then final tax newsletter.
Or like, yeah, in the event it's minus 30 or plus 30.
Yeah, because it never used to be an issue.
Yes.
If it's a snowstorm, everybody knows.
And it would be,
Yeah, there's stuff, there's inclement weather in our employment policy.
okay,
And that's basically it leaves it up to the discretion of the department head.
Yeah. correct.
And if we're closing this office because, we're having a Gravenhurst level storm, that it just be communicated out. And even when we had the issue with the carbon monoxide in the winter, I'll generally call a couple of council members just to let know that we're, I'm making a call like that. But yesterday, Dave had contacted me from Road and said, yeah, it's scorching out here. I'm sending the guys home. Great. Thanks for taking care of them.
Mhm.
So it's generally at the discretion of the department head or head of staff. And it doesn't hurt to reiterate that. I don't think it's, that we've listed it unless it is in health and safety.
I think there's something in the health and safety. I'm just,
I'll take a look and see if there's temperatures quoted or what have you, but
I don't know if it's that specific.
we could even call it inclement weather, and I understand when it's 40 degrees, you want to get rid of your garbage, it would be some stinky, but
Should have went when it was 30.
But I mean, the poor staff answering the phone.
Well, that was nothing. They should have seen today.
Oh,
well, it's actually great timing. We have a health and safety meeting coming up on Thursday. And I've got a number of things, Amy and I have gone over a number of things that we're going to be bringing up. So I'm going to highlight that and I can add that to the list and just see if we can review that. So I'll have a chit chat with Amy tomorrow and we'll get to the bottom of it.
And I'm assuming there's also a policy in place for the day camp for temperature.
That would be,
Would still apply, right?
yeah.
I would assume that the children will not be outside if it's 30 degrees.
I'm not sure if there's a written policy. I will follow up on
Thank you.
that day camp on that as well. And when we get to the bottom of it, if there's changes that you made, I can chat through with it, but we'll move forward with.
I have every faith in our staff in doing the right thing. I just want to make sure they know they're also backed in doing the right thing.
Do you have any policy sample ones to do with kids?
We do have it's posted. I'll get
A
it.
good idea.
If it's a certain negative and if it's a certain positive.
But not necessarily about just temperatures, anything,
Like warnings or anything, yeah.
anything.
I think a lot of that is like
But just,
board policies as per like, and it's,
but the titles might be helpful
oh,
for us.
absolutely. Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what we'll have to discuss as well. We'll see what they did at the day camp last year. Like you're not going to necessarily, that for young kids, it's not the worst thing in the world, but there should be time limitations. 15, 20 minutes application, like they have their application on screen. Actually, I just got all this because Ligor is gonna be in this year. Spray on sunscreen and all that type of fun stuff, but we'll take a review of it just to make sure our T's are crossed. Rod would say we're liable for that.
What?
As Rod would say, we're liable for that.
Hmm.
Okay, there's no other reports. I think let's take our break now. We'll go through correspondence and the new business after, so we'll break till 8:30 and then we'll come back online. Okay, we are back and we're just going through our correspondence. This is items 14 to 21 in your agenda package. And we have a few resolutions along the way. First one's from Black River Matheson. Council of the Township of Armour supports the Township of Black River Matheson and opposes the mandatory firefighter certification requirements as currently outlined in Ontario Regulation 343-22. Or Dorothy?
Move to talk about it.
Yeah. Sure. Sherry. So this is more about the onerous amount of training, I guess, that has to be done.
But I would argue extraordinarily necessary.
I think if you listen to the fire department, like, I mean, you can't expect them. I wouldn't want them touching me if I was injured, if they didn't have some sort of training.
Well, and I mean, fire training, I can't imagine agreeing as a council to send somebody into a fire that hasn't been trained to go into a fire.
Our guys can't go in.
Well, but you know what I mean, like to attempt to use the jaws of life if you've not been trained on it, they do a ton of training.
I think the concern is that these guys are the volunteers.
Yes, our volunteers do a ton of training.
Mhm.
I think what I would prefer to look at is how to fund them so they have access to the information they need as opposed to just agreeing that they can be firefighters without training.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. That's not, you're like, there's somebody's liable.
Absolutely. And how, I mean, you don't know what you don't know. I can't imagine just jumping on a truck and hoping that what I watched Jerry do last week is going to work for me. Because Jerry never takes me down the right path.
Just saying.
I think that's setting themselves up if they do that, because
Well,
not only it's, the person could get hurt, the person could hurt somebody. Family members are gonna start suing everybody.
yeah, this resolution isn't saying that they don't want them trained. It's saying
Certification.
the certification is extensive and there's no financial support to come from. the
Difficulty in retaining and replacing volunteers due to increased regulatory pressures.
Right.
But then we need to increase the funding so that they can meet the expectations, not take away the expectations.
That's the way I read it, was the way.
Yeah, so their resolution, whereas the Ontario government has enacted OREG 343-22, and whereas Black River Matheson acknowledges the importance of standardized firefighting training and safety, and whereas these mandatory certification requirements pose significant challenges for small, rural, and northern municipalities due to limited financial and training resources, geographic barriers, and reliance on volunteers. That's where they were coming from.
Yeah.
But
But the outcome,
yeah,
Is you're untrained.
Well, we've read it in, we can always defeat it. So,
Well, they're calling for that. Without additional support, flexibility, or exemption mechanisms, the implementation of OREG 34322 will severely compromise our ability to provide consistent, timely, and effective fire protection to our residents.
They're saying they need financial support to be able to make this feasible for our rural areas.
Is that what the resolution is, to help them with financial support?
Well, it's saying
From the
that
government
the
level?
Well, then-
province did the regulation, but with no added resources.
But what I was reading as the resolution is that they shouldn't have to, or they're asking to not have to meet the regulations. Right?
That's what I got out of it, was it's, the wording is,
It's the last statement that kills it. And that's where they asked that they oppose the mandatory firefighter certification.
Yeah.
Yes. They should have requested, we need more funding. Because they can't afford it.
So what happens when you guys pass a supporting resolution is that we send it back to the township with a copy of their original resolution and then ours, just basically summarizing what they put in. So they submit everything to the province with their backups and the explanation.
It's either that or we table it.
Want to discuss it with Joe, perhaps?
I did send it to Joe. I haven't heard anything back, but he's aware of that resolution that's circulating.
See, if we defeat it, then it looks bad. Whereas if you table it
yeah,
and wait for Joe's context on it, might be better for us.
It's not bad.
because his opinion might be, we're losing volunteers because they're not willing to put in the time to train.
Yeah,
I can ask.
Yeah, so we'll table it.
and that way we might be able to make a better resolution than what they had.
The training is extensive.
Sure.
Like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
We know that, we're gonna pay for that.
Okay, we'll table it. 15. Floating accommodations. This one's been back and forth a few times. Hear from Mayor Coates every once in a while. Whereas the floating accommodations position paper made to 2025 provides detailed and timely guidance for Ontario municipalities in addressing the regulatory, legal, and environmental issues associated with floating accommodations. And whereas the document outlines clear jurisdictional gaps in current provincial and federal frameworks and emphasizes the unique authority and responsibility of municipalities to regulate such uses through their zoning bylaws and official plans. And whereas the Township of Georgian Bay has taken a leadership role in addressing this matter and has expressed interest in fostering collaboration among municipalities facing similar challenges, therefore be it resolved that Council Township of Armour hereby receives the floating accommodations position paper for informational purposes, and that council expresses its support in the recommendations contained within the position paper, including the need for coordinated municipal action to ensure appropriate land use, public safety, and environmental protection.
Sure.
But seconder Dorothy,
It was an interesting read.
yeah, this became, well, it became a big problem on Georgian Bay. It was a big problem out west.
so is it more of a problem? I mean, when we heard about it, it was people building homes out of containers
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
pontoon boats. And I don't remember, where did houseboats fit in this? Like, there used to be pontoon boats, houseboat, you used to be able to rent a pontoon boat on the
They still got them.
Severn River. Like, how's that gonna affect?
They're not permanent residents though.
These guys are dropping anchor.
Sorry.
They're dropping anchors, right?
And they were basically saying that where they were parked is essentially, they own it now, because they're in the middle of the
They
lake.
can't assess it and
Yeah,
there's issues with septic.
So I just, okay, but let's just take it to one step further. What's the difference between that and a houseboat?
One's a home, one's not.
Yeah, the houseboat is.
Oh, okay, good point. Okay,
Yeah.
just right off the bat, it's a boat, it's a pontoon boat.
It's.
Okay,
There's no.
It's already a vessel.
right, okay, that's where I got lost, because I'm thinking, if I had a houseboat, I could live on it all summer.
They do in Amsterdam.
Oh, year.
You still can.
No, okay, I forgot about that. The houseboat is a vessel.
Yeah.
Okay,
But I had no idea there was a community in Scarborough.
yeah.
That has been there for years. permanent,
floating community.
yeah.
There's one at the waterfront in like Toronto, in the GTA, like in
In the
downtown Toronto too, is there not?
Well, this
Right
one
at the water.
talks about, I'm sure it talked about Scarborough area.
And the Scarborough Bluffs,
Yeah.
everything, yeah. Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? We'll carry that one. Next up, our friends in Bracebridge. Council of Township of Armour supports the town of Bracebridge and urges the province of Ontario to work with key stakeholders to develop limited liability legislation, including enforceable contractor training and a single set of provincially endorsed standard best management practices for snow and ice management on private lands, and to create fund an expert stakeholder advisory committee to advise the province and municipalities the best course of action, to protect freshwater ecosystems, drinking water, and infrastructure from the impacts of salt pollution.
Sure.
Jerry.
Anything to help our fish.
Sure. Yeah, this has become a bigger problem. Actually, this came up at that thing we went to 2 years ago at Alma, right?
Yeah.
At Neek. Okay. All those in favor? Support. Bracebridge.
Like that brings up another thing. I just found out on Saturday that Jack Lake has some invasive species. snails.
Yeah, it's a snail. Actually, who sent us that email? It was,
I think it was the Fragmite group, wasn't
it
it?
was a frag, yeah. Merrily.
This is snails.
Yeah. That's,
Well, no, they were out on Jack Lake doing some reports. We got a call about this about 2 weeks ago. So we've got stuff out on social media advising, and we've got some information here, and then they provided us with some signs.
Yeah, it's already up, signs up.
Yeah, so
I took pictures of. They had 3 in a jar. They're huge.
yeah.
They're really big, are they, Jen?
Yeah,
See,
but there's a possibility they might not live in cold water. So they're gonna wait to see what happens. But
it was shared to the
Really?
president of our association, so
Yeah.
he has posted something on our group.
yeah,
Yeah, I've never seen that. Next up is Bradford West Gwillimbury. Council Township of Armour supports the town of Bradford West Gwillimbury and calls on the government of Canada and all federal parties to increase the eligibility threshold for income replacement benefit program from 20,000 to no less than 40,000 annually for a single person household, and urges Veterans Affairs Canada to review all income support programs with the intent to modernize eligibility criteria, the eligible criteria, in line with the current cost of living across Canada.
sure.
I'll second.
And let's see.
Please. I'm hoping Jerry would have the answer, perhaps. Would our veterans not also get a pension?
It depends how old they are.
How long they serve.
And how long they served.
Okay,
And like a good number of years ago, say if you're a veteran from 50s, 60s,
okay,
your pension might not be that good
okay.
compared to,
But I'm assuming the average veteran's pension is more than $20,000 a year.
I know at one time it wasn't, so I don't know what it is now. For younger people in the forces now, it's much better.
Substantial, okay.
Looks like there's a group that have kind of fallen between the cracks
Okay,
Yeah,
from the looks
I
of it.
think that's what this is speaking to.
okay.
Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? That's carried. And I believe that's it for correspondence.
There's one there where, I think. If you look at item number 20, attached is Bob Miller's summary.
Well, that's the transmission line between Barry and Sudbury.
Yep.
I thought that was pretty interesting.
I just thought it was important that you had that information. Bob has pretty good perspective.
Yeah.
So he doesn't believe that the initiative has anything to do with helping Northern Ontario. It's about last minute planning to avert a massive power failure in the GTA.
And when you see the spread of the GTA,
Yeah.
you just wonder where all the hydro gonna come from.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Gonna be exporters. Exporting from here to
Well,
there.
don't send it to the States anymore, just
Yeah.
keep it here.
Except that they were told, like, the people that came to the meeting were told it would not be sent anywhere, it would be here.
ISO is said differently now. It's in your email.
Oh, really? No, it's not staying local?
Mhm. Some of the stuff that I've been seeing for 2 years now.
Actually, I had a phone call from a guy way up north by London Bridge. Wanted to know more information about Northland Solar and whatnot. As they're approaching him for a build up there,
Northland?
Northlanders.
Northland Power, yeah.
Yeah.
I was surprised.
Northland's doing a huge one in Carlton, Ottawa,
Oh,
Carlton.
yeah.
So
Like solar panels?
it's best,
Northland's doing them?
it's about 80 times the size of ours.
Well,
200, it's 350 megawatt.
it's big.
It's massive. Yeah. And Northland, I think that's the one there. It was either Nanacoke or that one that they got pulled into.
Yeah.
They're one of the partners.
That's interesting because they haven't done anything with their solar farms here. For Northland.
I think it could be because when they had, I think it was you and I were talking about this the other day, when they had all the issues with the solar farms here, maybe they got so much flack that they decided to just leave this area alone.
Well, the mag took a pretty good beating, there's no
Yeah.
doubt about that.
Or maybe they're focusing on bigger ones, because like I said, this one's huge. This is nothing like ours. This is massive.
And there's only so many people who are able to do that.
Yeah, you have the expertise to do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, we have some unfinished business. So the Elmegwin OPP, got a note from Doug around the community safety zone in Katrine.
So I did respond back to this and I let Staff Sergeant know what our road super has planned. And he thinks that that's great, and he asked at the end of the season if Dave would share that with the OPP, the data that's.
The data.
Sure. Did you invite him in to get the information at a meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Any questions for sure on the OPP? They meet monthly? Is it every?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Item 23, request for volunteers, can I do fireworks? So this is the annual event. Assuming this is Tuesday night, 7:30.
Yes.
I am not available this year for that. I was able to go last year, but I can't go this year.
I can go this year, I couldn't go last year.
Put you down.
Probably put me down too.
2 years ago, I reached into my apron and pulled out a wad of cash and was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm really good at this game before I even started.
When you were in Marty and I did it, we grabbed their aprons, put our hand in from the year before, and there was $20. They missed it.
Although I'm kind of surprised that with all the wildland fire information that they haven't actually banned fireworks altogether.
Yeah.
Like it just, when you hear all the noise about,
We just trained our fire department to let them off.
yeah, that's right.
Now is not the time.
Dave, Shar, is there a potential, I guess, like the money goes to Burks Falls and they figure out how much we owe after,
Yeah.
but is there potential to do tap? to have like some kind of machine out there to tap?
It'd be Birch Falls that's organizing it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can be done, for sure.
I'm not sure whether their systems that they use in the canteen would reach out there wirelessly.
I just like, how often are you like, I have 42 cents in the
I
car?
had a lot last year. I had no cash with me.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Almost. It's a good excuse, but I mean, honestly, how many people, if you go to a store, if you go to a restaurant, the first thing they do is hand you the machine.
Mhm.
People don't play with cash.
And you don't stop. You don't have your car loaded with kids and stop at a bank machine
Yeah.
to make a donation. Right? You're like, your mind's out. I would just love it if we could make it more accessible to donate if you wish.
To be quite honest, how many years have we been doing this? People go year after year, they know they're gonna get stopped for a donation.
Yeah. Yeah, we
I
did
usually-
more new people in there.
I usually am like turning the corner in Kearney and go and see the firefighters and go, oh, and then go, oh. Like, forget every year.
I don't know if they would have enough for every volunteer though.
Even if we had one, like one, I don't know. Anyway,
I'll put the-
maybe next
It'd be
year.
a matter of whether or not their wireless network is they're not on cellular, right?
But you can
There's
probably spot.
machines potentially, but again, I'm not sure how that works from an IT perspective.
Okay.
Like if they're, yeah, I'm not sure.
The complication, I think, because it's what do they call it? Not Q. Anyway,
The square.
the square, because it has to line up with their bank account and they have to know where it's coming from. And that's usually where it gets complicated.
But there's kiddos that stand outside of like the Canadian Tire
Well, they should be able,
and you just tap and it automatically deducts $2.
The Salvation Army has that now. They've been able to tap on their,
yeah,
I just don't know, there's obviously a sending unit in there somewhere that sends it somewhere.
Yeah,
But with respect to their debit machine, like our debit machine here is wired. I don't know what the range is on the wireless models, if they can walk out into the parking lot and still, I would assume they'd have to be connected to their internal network there, but I don't know. It might be phone lines. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So it's a question you can ask and
Yeah.
I'm sure,
It's an offer to take each person's debit card to the bank.
there you go.
I've been there when people have said,
Just e-transfer.
I'll go to the bank, I'm gonna go to the cash machine, I'll be right back. Like I've had them say that. But on same thing. There's a lot of people, when you're standing there, they're already digging out of their ashtray. Like I understand there's always people don't come with money. There's always people that are not gonna donate.
And there's nothing to buy there, so there's no need to bring money outside of the donations.
and then there's people that hand over $50.
Yeah.
Subsidize the 3 cars behind.
yeah.
Just hand them a card with how you can donate from home.
Yeah,
There you go.
in here.
That's actually not a horrible idea. To have the village e-transfer.
They did last year. 2 years ago, e-transfer was a thing, was it not? Because
Yeah,
we had the total donated in cash and then we had total donation overall. And there was some.
all right. So we have our volunteers. Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
You and Dorothy.
I'll just show up, yes. Next up, the Township Motto Logo and Branding Initiative. So this is item 24 and Charlene has a staff report and some back.
Floor's yours, Mayor.
So there was actually a few different conversations where this came up, and I brought it up a couple of years ago, only because when I look at our logo, I just thought, it's time for change. But I think now, when I think about it, it would be nice to be able to pull in the whole area. And I'm not sure how we do that, but if you can incorporate the Algonquin piece into the logo or a motto and make this part of our public engagement. Because the one thing that Dave and I have been talking about is we need to do more positive public engagement, not a public meeting where we're getting.
I just got the Armour boat tattooed. Can't change it.
Really?
No.
I almost said prove it.
So there's the Algonquin, like the Algonquin Highlands School, there's the Algonquin Highlands OPP. The OPP's logo is pretty standard, but could we like incorporate this school? Like what else is Algonquin? What else?
So we've got a brand, when the Village of South River went through their rebranding most recently, they had asked for a copy of the Almaguin brand book that we had produced through the brand strategy implementation. So they utilized some of the brand colors and tied in some of the themes. So that's easy enough to do. But I think to the point of public consultation, you know, we've been chatting about some further in-house strategic planning and reaching out for insight and comment from residents and ratepayers. I want to do that, as I mentioned to Rod. I wanted to do that I want to have a survey out by the end of August, so we can still capture some of our seasonal ratepayers that are in the area. And if we have something prepared in time, we can hopefully get it out with the tax bill. Or the tax newsletter, I should say. So there's a hope there, or at least we can use that as a starting point and where to show people where they can find information about public consultation that we're driving. But I think this would be a good fit for that.
Questions?
No, I think it's a good idea. I think it's time.
When we were at the schoolhouse, somebody referred to the Armour boat. And for whatever reason, I think that was the first time I connected that the boat was called the Armour. Like I was like, oh, not just Armour and this boat, it's the same thing, okay. And then, but like, I would assume it would have been pretty big. I can't imagine how it actually went down the river, but.
Oh, I'm sure Bob Muller has the exact dimensions of
The river was.
Yeah.
That's where all the boats are.
We can book the afternoon. We'll
Still
get Bob
moving.
on the line.
What's that?
The boat's still going.
Yeah, it's been renamed something.
It's been renamed and rebuilt.
It's in Port Corbin area, isn't it?
For Coben. At least it was the last,
Yeah.
I remember.
The one I saw was in the schoolhouse and it was quite lovely.
Ab Culvert built that, made that.
Who did?
Ab Culvert.
If you go down to Magneto and they had another guy build a boat. I can't remember whether it was a Algonquin or something like that, but it's up on a stand right now.
It's downtown at
Yeah.
Mexico.
But
It's Cindy Culver's dad.
Oh, okay. Sorry, going back a tiny little bit, did the Historical Society fill the positions that were vacant again? They did a lovely plug when the kids were there, where they're like, hey, you guys are a little bit young, but if any of you have older brothers or sisters looking for summer jobs.
So now they're just going with a mature person. It could be a senior. It's just a part-time position.
Jarb said to me, or if you know any teachers not working this summer.
actually, there is a
Applicant.
interview coming in.
Oh, good,
forward.
okay, good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Okay, so we have a resolution for this one. I should have read it before. Staff report from municipal clerk dated June 24, 2025, titled Township Motto, Logo and Branding Initiative. Public consultation be accepted, and that council approve the initiation of a public consultation process to gather community input on a potential new township motto, logo, and branding direction.
Sure.
Wendy,
I'll second.
I got Dorsey. Any other questions? All those in favor? We can carry on with our motto. What's the motto?
Interestingly, Charlene proposed a couple of ideas that I think we should put as potentials. People can come up with their own, but
Yeah,
one of the ones that really rang for me was partners in progress, neighbors by nature. And that.
ChatGPT.
I like it. I like
Little Chad.
by nature. I think that is so cool.
And then the embrace our nature tie in there.
I like it.
Bells were ringing.
And so we use the same colors as the.
Scratch consultation, we figured it out.
It's already done, yeah.
Love neighbors by nature. That is fantastic. I'm getting that another tattoo.
And some of the logo drawings, it like through AI, it's amazing what you can create, like just by giving it a few keywords. Like you look at, the roots of, the rural community and how it's, creates this foundation and the roots and how it turned into all these different things out of this tree, and it was really cool. I would have never thought of that.
So no boat.
So you get a 6-headed snake.
You type in these different like keywords and what it can create out of it, just.
Oh, it's all right. So Tammy actually fights with Chad now. Chad GPT, she calls him Chad.
Yeah.
And if he's not giving the answer she likes it, you're being lazy, Chad. You get, use your head so that he'll actually go back and wait, and come back with another answer. That's better. You're doing better. So she has fights with him. Okay, next up is DSAB board vacancy. So the representative for Works Falls, I guess, has missed a few meetings. So they now have a vacancy. So is there an issue? I mean, have we ever had two Armour members?
No.
Yeah.
There's always been two different townships. And
I just wanted to put this resolution in here in case you guys, but
Yeah.
nothing's come forward yet.
So we haven't seen any.
So table this and wait to see.
this
what-
just happened since last week, so.
Yeah, it's fairly new.
So we could table it, see what the other municipality come back.
It would be wise, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it would look too good to have two.
And we're,
reps.
and we really need to look at better ways of coming up with people. Because what we went through the last time, it dragged on like 6 months.
Oh, yeah, we've been through this process.
Yeah,
This will now be 3 people on DSAT, like in addition to you. For this term of council.
3 different people?
Yes.
yeah,
And DSAP has to be unanimous, right?
yes.
So we can wait, we know that we have an Armour rep, then wait to see what the other municipalities.
We're okay.
Yeah.
Like our zone is represented
Right, yeah,
by me,
right.
but
And that's why the
It's-
others keep not going. They're like, Jerry's got it.
I know, well, I've been doing all the homework. Yeah,
Time we get it figured out, it'll be the end of the term.
yeah,
You don't have
but
to read the resolution at all if you don't want, just say that you reviewed it.
We'll just table.
it'd be nice to know what other people want to do. There could be somebody really wanted to.
Yeah.
I know there was somebody down south wanted to, but
Did you table that?
I did. Well, I guess we should have moved it and seconded it before we tabled it. I'll get a mover and a seconder and then we'll table.
for
Okay. Thank you. Table it is. Item 26 is the Watt Century Farmhouse Engineers Report on the drive shed and the barn. So I'll read it in the resolution first and then we'll get background from Sure. Council Township of Armour hereby accepts the findings and recommendations of the June 13th, 2025 engineering report prepared by GES for the Watt Century Farmhouse's barn and drive shed and directs the Berks Falls and District Historical Society to engage qualified individuals at their cost to document and assess salvageable historical materials and identify Mennonite communities or other appropriate groups who may wish to salvage building materials from the buildings. And that the Council of Township of Armour directs Berks Falls and District Historical Society to report back to council with a proposal for review and approval prior to commencing any site works. Get a mover.
sure,
Rod,
sure.
Jerry. So background, I know, Jerry, if you know the background, or Shar on the report.
Either or, Jerry, I'll just say that the resolution itself is just based on the discussion and the resolution that was passed by the Historical Society on Monday night as to what they would like to do, but Jerry,
Yep.
if you want to cover
The what?
do you want to cover the report?
Cover the report?
Yeah, did you have a summary?
No,
Oh, okay.
no, I was down to Paul a long time ago in regards to the red building. And yeah, I was sort of ironic that they picked the same guy down in Bracebridge. I really liked the guy from when I went down and talked to him in regards to the red building. But going through the report here, I got to see it when I got the notes here. But he had a lot of really good ideas and how to save some of the buildings that are there and repurpose
Some of the
them,
portions at least.
which would make sense. It's just, I don't know what kind of cost that'd be.
Yeah.
But right now, from this report, what I'm reading here, we got a problem because we got a liability now.
Yeah, so when you look at page 137, he's saying in summary, it's their opinion that the barn and the drive shed would not be economically feasible to rebuild or repair without a fair number of donated construction material and labor, as I believe the reparation cost could reach six figures, a high six figures, due to the complexity and safety issues involved with such restoration. Although many of the structural items are in disrepair, there are many possible valuable items monetarily or historically that could be relocated or reused to rebuild a new historically correct structure just somewhere else on the farm to recoup some costs. This would involve having an antiques expert and someone familiar with post and beam work and old timbers to spend a day cataloging all of the salvageable antique items, lightning rods, etc., and to note all of the length sizes of the beams, barn boards, floorboards to ensure that they're all saved during demolition. GES also recommends the installation of cameras and fencing along the front roadside of the property because of safety and concerns with the property as it stands right now.
As far as the barn goes, the barns are, people don't buy the barns, they'll take it down for you for free and they'll get rid of it. So I mean, to have somebody go in and catalog what beams are good, you're basically wasting your time unless it's a personal thing, because the barns, nobody will give you anything for it. They won't charge you to take it down. They'll take the materials they'll take it down and take the materials and call it even. And that's a very common practice. It has been going on. I remember when we first discussed it personally, I was probably 15 years ago. Pat Hayes is running into the same problem with his barn. He said he wants something for it. Nobody will give him anything and take it down. So you have an old barn. It would be good. I mean, if we had volunteers that would tear it down and say, let's build a structure out of the timbers, but nobody's going to do that for free. It's all valuable. If I was Pat, I would knock my barn down and sell the timbers. But for the township to salvage anything and think they're gonna get anything for it, there's nobody here that's gonna do that for free. So it's pointless to think you're gonna get.
It's not necessarily the barn boards itself, it's the lightning rods with.
Well, those things will be handy, like, but in general, like when I was reading that report, it sounds like whatever's hanging on the walls, somebody could take that off. But as far as the barn goes, don't expect you're gonna get money to supplement anything. Like it's.
You don't want any volunteers in there doing that.
No, they don't know what, if we had a group of Mennonites around that did that sort of thing, maybe it would be good to pay them, a group of them, to dismantle the barn, and then you have it. But around here, we don't have that group of people, and to pay somebody to dismantle that safely, carefully, that it's salvageable, it's pointless.
The Historical Society is basically asking for permission to do that. To look to see if we can find some Mennonites, and your resolution words it that it's at their cost. Like at the historic, like to the investigation and all that stuff, so. I know when I worked down in Air, there was a building on the auction site. And they reached out to the Mennonites to have it removed. It was an old structure and they did it over the course of a weekend. Saved every nail and everything. When we went back Monday morning, that whole building was gone. Not a speck of, not even, no garbage, no debris left. It was amazing. But I don't know if there's a group of Mennonites that would come up to this area. I've been told that maybe there would be.
Oh, awesome.
There was a group, when I worked at the lumber store, there was three brothers built a cottage on Rockman Island. First brother built it, got his group of Mennonites up, and in 2 weeks they had a huge cottage. And each brother enhanced the previous building product. but they brought the Mennonites up. They worked in 4-day shifts. They brought a group of 8 people up for 4 days and they worked like from dawn till dark. And they took them away and brought another group back. And there was a group 2 were here before group 1 left. There was nothing stopped. Like they used to come into the lumber store and give me a list of what they wanted. And the last brother brought a wagon with the list of materials, how we wanted piled. They trucked it to the landing. They loaded the wagon on a barge and winched it on up to the top of the hill. They had the first brother paid a crew to unload it. They had a crew on the landing to carry it up the hill. And like I say, the third brother had it down pat.
He perfected it.
It was all done.
And we're not doing that.
But yeah, it wouldn't be hard to find somebody that would, if you want them to come up and do that, but it's not, they're not doing it for free.
Yeah, so the Historical Society is just looking for permission to do this and
Yep.
they would report back to you before they did it.
Okay. So we have
It seems a shame, but when it comes to a liability, the township's on the hook.
Yeah.
Like most barns around here just fall down.
Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor? It's carried. Now, next up, we have staff report. Actually, this is the last thing in our open agenda, then we go into closed. Staff report on municipal law enforcement service evolution of role. There's a report from Jay and Brian, I guess. Talking about their expanded roles.
I did chat with Jay and Bri about this one. Their mindset is that they would like to move bylaw enforcement more into a regional approach.
Yep.
So there are bylaw officers that are looking at retiring in the south and in this area. And they're looking at hopefully incorporating bylaw. Yeah,
Magwin bylaw as opposed to.
pretty much, yeah.
No wonder we need a new logo.
Center of excellence.
When you look at their report and you look at, if you've had an opportunity to read it, it's a really good report that Jay's done. And basically, when you look at it, their job, what they do since 2019 has increased 5-fold. So in 2019, they had 100 calls. In 2024, they had over 500 service calls. Since COVID, these boys are dealing with a lot of mental health issues. The growth, they've expanded the shared service and the regional partnerships. They've enhanced community engagement by, getting involved in festivals. They've been to our town halls meetings to promote safety. It's not just here. They're doing these meetings in other municipalities. They've implemented AMPs, non-traditional roles, increased involved with homelessness, interventions, addiction-related complaints. It was less than 2 weeks ago that Jason found somebody that was overdosing on the side of the road on his day off.
Stay off. He came in here, swung by, and there was somebody just outside, just on the
on-ramp.
Tim Hortons.
Wow.
Like in the ditch, and he was just driving. He's like, is that a person? So, and then as he got on the highway, it was too late. He looped back around, and by the time he came back around, he had his connections with the police. The police were there right away. So,
I saw, not unrelated, but I pulled in and Jason had his bulletproof vest hanging on a knitted hanger, and I was like, oh, isn't that sweet? The lovely soft element to the bulletproof vest.
But you've got the safety and the risk considerations, which are huge, and though it's not, he says not recommended at this time. The province has proposed expanding special constable powers, including the carrying of firearms right now to bylaw enforcement.
Well, and there's some costs. I had the opportunity last week to sit down with the bylaw team as part of just understanding what their environment looks like now. And there was a couple of pretty eye-opening things that came to light. And I think we are in a very unique opportunity where Jay's previous skill set and awareness of social services that are available to people and the work that he's doing now as Shar mentioned, the changes that have happened since COVID, we're seeing a lot more people coming up into the area that may be in distress. We see a lot more distress being caused by our current economic situation. They are getting calls from the OPP requesting that they respond to the homelessness encampments and things like that. The resources are stretched thin across almost all services that are out there. And one of the big points that Jay makes in his report is that they are creating solutions and working with people, not just enforcement based. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're taking even if you're trying to have a regional lens in the, in the 3 to 5 year future based on the factors that Shar mentioned, a lot of these problems aren't going away, and unfortunately a lot of the demands for increased services aren't being met. What they are doing to stand in the gap for a lot of folks, I also say that that's a measure of safety for them. They're not just showing up with a ticket book, and if they did, Brian was giving me an example of someone in one of the served municipalities where there was like knives being thrown. And there was an instance where he just sat her down and sat the individual down and spoke with them and got the understanding of the story, and kind of both physically and mentally the situation was disarmed. And there are a lot of people at risk and that pose risks in many different areas. The other thing that's important to note in that conversation is retention of good staff. When you can go work for the OPP, potentially not even deal with some of the nitty gritty that they'll deal with here for a significant increase in cost, in pay, that affects retention. I think with the service that we're building now, or if there is an opportunity for a regional center of excellence going on down the line, we need to make sure that not only are people remunerated correctly, but that they have the training that they need. We had discussed as part of that chat, do we need use of force training before we get to the special constable status? Do we need other things to keep things moving? So our guys may need a bit more training, but then you'll see in the final paragraph that they're getting calls now from other regions saying, how are you delivering these services? And they are being seen as experts in the field. So the long story short is I think we have a real gem of a department. They're committed, but we need to recognize us and the partners that are contributing to the service that the landscape has changed. And what the team is doing right now is the solution for what we're seeing. They're working with people. They're de-escalating situations. They're bringing real solutions. Some of the calls that I've gotten from our team saying, "Hey, we had this pop up. We're trying to think outside the box and fix this in A, B, and C ways." I wish I could get into specifics. I won't. It's very much needed and very much over and above the call of duty for what a municipal law enforcement officer typically does. But I would posture that the way they're doing things is the right way to do things. And it's the right thing to make sure that is a model that is fostered, protected, built, and hopefully taught out.
It's expanding beyond the traditional role of dog catcher and bylaw. When they're going out and they're working, they're getting phone calls from fire departments asking them to come out to help deal with vulnerable people, lift assists, whatever, right?
Well, there's been biohazards circumstances they've had to walk into on numerous types of calls. So
there's I see kind of two aspects. One is we definitely have to look at these roles and the fact that it has changed. I think it needs to be reviewed. But I think for the sake of the rest of our staff as well, we've set a strategy that we want to become centers of excellence. So I think we need another rating category when we look at our job descriptions, a rating category that says, if you're doing this for more than Armour, that counts for something. So whether it's recreation, bylaw, or planning, building.
If you're beyond the department head.
And you're now expanding. So I think we need to look at different criteria. So with Jay and Brian, there's health and safety. There's a whole bunch of different things that come into it.
Mhm.
But I think we need another rating category that says
Frequency.
it's like expansion beyond our walls. This is going out beyond our walls. And it encourages us to start looking at things regionally from a staff perspective. So now, whether you're in recreation or planning, maybe you're thinking, hey, you know, that's a career goal for me. I can aspire to that, and maybe it kind of aligns with what we're trying to do.
Well, if what we're doing is good enough to box up and send out, and then we're sending people out to
And
do
people are
that.
gonna start asking for advice, right? They say, well, how did
Yep.
you guys do it?
We've seen that with ACE. We just, Wendy just sat on a call last week with a neighbor outside of our borders. So the long story short, to your point, there is a review of all of the pay equity information scheduled for this year. We're at that time. So there's a number of things that we've discussed internally that we'd like to try and build in. Shar just mentioned frequency, how often you're dealing with these types of risks. We can go more in depth as we get together with the employment committee, which is referenced in this as one of the recommendations. But there are some fairly large changes that we need to do to modernize our descriptions and our ratings and all of that. So there's some strategies that we can chat about with the employment committee, but I'd asked Jay, evidently there needs to be education around how this role has changed. I think we should start with the home crowd as well as our partners. And then
Yeah, we'll have to keep our partners informed as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Cause it's gonna substantially.
As costs go up.
Yeah, change.
Yeah, well, I think the other benefit to that is that both of our staff are recognized as department heads or our senior bylaw enforcement officers recognized as leadership.
And Brian's as well.
Recognized as leadership and called into leadership meetings in our other councils, which I think is great for how they've leveraged their influence as experts in their field.
They see them as their staff.
Right. And so I think realistically, one of the things I mentioned was we need to create a foundation of knowledge, of information around how this has changed. That needs to be taught out to all stakeholders and get everyone on the same page. I did play the other side and say, like the municipalities are going to have to determine whether that level of service is what they require from municipal enforcement. I would posture and I would stand by this every day of the week. The way they're doing things is the right way to do it.
Yeah.
You're not just slapping people with tickets and inflaming already volatile situations. We don't want that reputation. All it takes is to show up on one property and you're met with something you don't want to be met with. We don't want them to ever have to be in a situation where they have to count on the protective equipment that we've provided to them. We have it for a reason. But again, the way that they're able to de-escalate and act as liaisons with other services in that network, you don't box that up and reproduce it just out of thin air. That's by design, by competent and good people.
So we have a resolution that the staff report from the senior bylaw enforcement officer dated June 24th, 2025 regarding the evolution of municipal law enforcement services role, community impact and organizational recommendations be received and direct staff and the employment committee to review and revise the job descriptions for the municipal law enforcement officer and senior municipal law enforcement officer to accurately reflect their expanded responsibilities, risks, and required competencies. Rescore the updated positions using the township's pay equity and compensation framework and propose new grid placements that reflect current duties. Consult with human resources and the treasurer to assess implementation options and impacts and report back to council with proposed amendments, pay grid changes, and budget considerations for approval. Yeah, Dorothy.
Sure.
I saw Wendy.
Okay. She was a little slow. Threw me off.
Any other questions on this one? For Dave? Or sure.
Regarding, I mean, they are phenomenal. They are not your standard bylaw. Your dog was on the road, here's your ticket. Not by any means, they're phenomenal. And if we want to keep great staff, we have to pay them. Or we will be paying somebody else.
Beyond that, you know, they're taking care of our township.
Absolutely.
We need to take care of them. And that's, you know, that I think that's, it's not just about changing things or upgrading pay or whatever. That comes from every aspect of safety. That comes from just about everything else. That's my personal stance. You know, you hire great people, you take care of them, you make sure that they've got what they need, and allow them to do what they have to do.
It'll be important to make sure that everybody understands this is filling a gap. So we don't want to get into a position where it starts to look like we're hiring OPP to work at the municipality.
Yeah.
Like there's a fine line, right?
Yeah.
Where all of a sudden now, okay, now we're carrying weapons now, like, so at some point you gotta say, no, this is filling a gap and it's really a mental wellness gap. And this is how you do it properly. This is how you interface with the OPP when you need them, but this is how we're doing things within the municipality. So that's the fine line.
I've asked for some more supportive documentation. The fact that he pulled this, I think we had that on Wednesday or Thursday, and by the end of the week, by Friday, we had this report. I did emphasize that education and bringing people along with you so that they understand where those gaps are, and clearly articulating that is going to be critical. Rose to that challenge in the short matter of days, but I've asked for him to liaise with the OPP and to get statements that corroborate what we're seeing, and as well as other. You know, this actually came up in you know, not to switch gears to the A side of things, but having that network of organizations is a key to success. So him knowing all of the ins and outs of social groups, but also having those linkages is a key to success. Very similar to what we described with the member from another municipality with regards to how waste interfaces with all of the support agencies and organizations to create solutions for people. They're doing that from for lack of a better way of looking at it, I suppose they're saving people a good deal of grief and or much greater than that by the services that they're providing. But that needs to be quantifiable. It needs to be demonstrable as we go forward.
Well, as opposed to them saying you can't have a camp here, they say, and here are all of the resources you need so that you can successfully live elsewhere. They have connections to DSAP and so on, right? The right connections to make sure that they're not just saying, pack up your tent, but.
On coordinated wellness, they've coordinated wellness checks on a number of calls, routine calls that they've had where people are potentially at risk, and they identify that. They make hey, you might want to go and take in mental health and then do a wellness check on certain situations, or coordinated other services.
Yes. But it's impacted their home too, you know, they've had a bylaw officer that basically had to put his own home and hold and secure. So there's a lot of risks to it, and it's understanding that they're willing to take that on.
That's the one when somebody called me and said there was a site. It's at Thompson's Rapids, but on the other side of the river. People were shooting up down there. I called Jason. I said, I'll meet you down there and have a go and look at it. And he just brought a ribbon. He just made a perimeter and said, I can't do anything with that. But he said, we'll contact the homeowner and let them know that it's there. It's interesting. And then another situation, I know there was a person that lived in a house that wasn't compatible, we'll say, for living. And within 24 hours, he got them in fell homes. Like, people are on a list for 3 years. They have good connections.
That speaks to, that is not your dog was on the road. Here's your bylaw, your grass is too long, here's your ticket.
Donnie Miller used to always come into our office and wait for Jay to give him a ride back home. And Jay would take him, pick him up, he'd do wellness checks on him. Jason, our bylaw guy, was the reason, is the guy that got Donnie Miller that motorized scooter. He got that for him. He followed through from start to end to make sure that Donnie had that.
Like, that's not a grid 2 bylaw, you know, like that's not like, okay, here's your 2 points.
That's what our bylaw guys are doing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's above and beyond, and people recognize that. And Donnie didn't even live within the municipality. He just took care of them.
Jason told me the other day that depending on what the winter months look like, if they're not as busy, you know, as obviously in the summer, they're looking at getting into schools just to do different programmings with kids and like.
Look what they did with co-op.
Yeah.
I mean, having that one student and watching that student change over the period of
Mhm.
4 months to a completely different
That's phenomenal.
kid.
Yes, this has evolved into something really good,
Mhm.
and I think it's time that the government knows what we're doing. And it'd
Well,
be a great pilot project.
it is, and I think it actually ties in, when you think about a community wellness hub,
Yeah,
it's not just about healthcare, it's about education and mental health and how well your community is. That's really what it comes
Yeah.
down to. And Jake could help us out.
To the people.
When you think about if somebody said, I'm calling bylaw on you, you don't think, oh, good, I will be in a safe home in 24 hours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's,
Change their name.
Yeah.
With a different department.
it's incredible.
Okay, so we have a mover and a shaker. Any other questions on this one? All those in favor? Would have been funny if we defeated it after outlet.
Thanks for your work, but whatever.
You can do a looper after we'll meeting and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can
well,
wipe that into the
Oh,
version we
sorry.
sent it.
He doesn't know what he's talking. Okay, this one we did, that was Allison's report, and I believe we are done.
Good night.
Good night, Abby.
Council Township of Armour hereby moves into closed session at 9:31 PM. Under section 2392C of the municipal act to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board.
Shut up your.
So recording. Mover.
sure.
I got Rod and Dorothy. Sorry, Jerry.
Okay.
All those in favor, we're in closed. Okay, instruct staff to proceed as directed in our closed session. This we don't need, correct?
Not the 206.
Break it.
Yes, sir.
Council Township of Armour adjourned this regular council meeting at 9:58 PM. Until the next regular council meeting scheduled for July 8th, 2025, or at the call of the mayor or the clerk. The mover. Rod and then Jerry, I got. Those in favor of leaving?